Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Jesus is the lighthouse. And of course, we will see him soon. But in the meantime, we have to deal with the challenges on earth as we are still here because we have a duty and responsibility to our fellow men and women. I know that the general acceptance is that when you talk about men, you're involving women as well. But I thought tonight I will make the distinction so that there is no doubt that women are included. So yes, indeed, whilst we are here on earth, we have to do our duty to men and women. And yes, indeed, it will be a joyous time when we get there. But whilst we are here, it will also be a joyous time when we get rid of the albatross, of the evil, of the devil incarnated, the pernicious, the diabolical, the heinous, the egregious. And no doubt, as they would normally do, and as we said on the last occasion, that the devil has its followers. We can't say disciples in the devil's case. We say they have their imps. And of course, we have gone all over the world to demonstrate long before World War II, long before World War I, and long before the various conflicts across the globe that involves, of course, despots or criminals who are used to be described or are described euphemistically as dictators, autocrats, and totalitarians. But one word, they are evil. Evil. And that is what we are experiencing today in Trinidad and Tobago with Rowley and his bunch of imps. Yes, indeed. Welcome to the Corridor Transformation. Your host, LENNOX Smith, in the background. And of course, hoping that pretty soon I'll be in the forefront or in the foreground of the camera. But that being as it may, we will continue to have and to do what we have to do. Oh yes, I ain't ready to go home yet, but if he takes me, there's nothing I can do. I have to make certain. And of course, he doesn't give you more than you can carry. And we have to see the backs of Rowley and his team to ensure that those who we would have left and the unborn, in other words, those who are yet to be born, live a better life. We must do better. We can do better. The resources are available. The only impediment, the only hurdle, the only disruptive element is that of the Rowley administration. Let's hear, of course, as we celebrate on this Sunday night, leading into, of course, the start of the new work week, when, of course, we will be encouraged by the ground report, and then again, of course, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock by the Corridor Transformation. But let's go again.
We are the party that gave every child a secondary school education since 2001.
By building more schools in 11 years than others did. We believe that no child,
Rich or poor, should be left behind.
which is why we give every 4-month student a laptop to expand their mind.
We are the party that gave every child a secondary school education since 2001.
By building more schools in 11 years than others did in 40. We believe that no child,
Rich or poor, should be left behind.
which is why we give every 4-month student a laptop to expand their minds and their dreams.
We are the party that put police cars back on the streets.
And gave the police a $1,000 bonus because we believe that we should support the persons who are protecting you.
We are the party that reduced the murder rate to its lowest in 14 years. We expanded GATE, stopped the property tax, and increased maternity leave.
We are the party that invested in you and in your community by investing in schools, community centers, lighted parks, 24-hour health centers, and the most extensive road repair program in decades.
We believe that education is always a solution and that no...
Yes, people. Of course, a pleasant good night to all on Century, East, West, South, South Central, or Friends in Tobago, and wherever you are streaming on the World Wide Web. A pleasant good night to you. Yes, this is the Sunday edition of the Corridor Transformation. Your host. Let's hear a little of what the UNC did between 2010 and 2015. The party that must regain or start where they would have left off, having regard to the fact that all of us are convinced, except of course those what I consider to be dying breed, those who are on the verge of extinction, that will follow a party that has morphed or turned or metamorphosized into a criminal enterprise called the PNM. Yes, they are wallowing in their own what I consider to be evil at Napa, claiming to have some kind of special convention on what? On constitutional reform. Hogwash. Superficial, superfluous, and intended, of course, to hoodwink. We have been there, done that, know that, and therefore it is not dissimilar to, of course, the so-called what? The so-called local government reform. Nonsense. Let's hear some serious people and what they would have accomplished and could have accomplished if this albatross, this bunch of opportunistic political parasites called the PNM and Rowley, the head mafia, did not deceptively intervene and delude and hoodwink and gaslight a sufficient section of the population to vote for these ne'er-do-wells. Thank God. It was only, of course, a 23 and then, of course, further reduced 22 seats. So the victory for the UNC is clear. And, of course, all unfair games will have to be played over. And the UNC will have its opportunity inevitably next year. He could play Maduro, play mad like Maduro, and see what he go get. Let him play mad like Maduro. But, of course, we will talk about that a little more tonight. But let's go back, of course, to some of the achievements before we take some additional neutralization of criticism leveled at the UNC. There has been too much, and as I said, I want to be aggressive, I want to be proactive, and I wanted to be, of course, very, 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 what I consider to be not just aggressive, but certainly vitriolic and excoriating when it becomes necessary. But let's hear some of it.
We are the party that put police cars back on the streets.
And gave the police a $1,000 bonus because we believe that we should support the persons who are protecting you.
We are the party that reduced the murder rate to its lowest in 14 years. We expanded GATE, stopped the property tax, and increased maternity leave.
We are the party that invested in you and in your community by investing in schools, community centers, lighted parks, 24-hour health centers, and the most extensive road repair program in decades.
We believe that education is always the solution and that no one should have to pick between sending their child to school or buying food.
We are the party that works for you. We are the first responders in every situation, working to deliver a better standard of living for you and your family.
And most importantly, we have confidence in you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. This is not a campaign, it's a movement based on building communities and strengthening families.
Come out and join us, and together we will get the nation working and moving again. Our children will once again have access to gate and technology.
We will improve healthcare.
By cutting the time it takes to see a doctor in an emergency, we will establish a senior citizen unit in every major hospital and staff the hospital with the doctors and nurses you need to create a first-class healthcare system. We will focus on creating high-paying jobs, fixing our laws to remove red tape, and ensuring that you and your family are safer. We will reduce corporate taxes to jumpstart the economy, create a special investment zone along the East-West corridor, and work with entrepreneurs to build a digital economy. This is an investment in your community to move the nation forward and get TNT working again.
Whether you are from 4th Street in Barataria to Railway Road in Dow Village, from Green Street in Tunapuna to Clark Road in Debe, from La Hoqueta to Moruga, from Mayaro to Scarborough, we are one people with the same dreams of a better tomorrow. And when we stand together, we win together. We are UNC and proud.
Yes, people, and of course, I thought it was important to start with this because there, at times, it becomes ad nauseum. It's a Latin expression to mean sickening. When people will not recognize and somehow give unmeritorious and sometimes asinine credit to people who clearly have demonstrated they are either con men or con women, they are deceivers, and their only intent is to utilize the resources of the country to get an unfair advantage, not to level the playing field. And then people give them credit and say that you can't beat them in an election. I say it is hogwash, particularly in circumstances where they were beaten to a frazzle before. They don't take that into consideration. Well, thank my own, what I consider to be, whether it be by serendipity or otherwise. But let me just say this: from tomorrow, of course, I will be starting the process of communicating with the various players. I don't care if it's UNC, PNM, whosoever. I will contact them. If they don't want to talk to us, well, fine. But of course, we want to get a perspective, because to know something is ugly, you have to have a concept of what is good looking or beautiful. We know, compared to the PNM, the UNC is lily. It is superlative material by way of policies, programs, implementation, addressing the economy, addressing crime, addressing education, addressing social development or delivery, addressing, of course, community development, addressing sports, addressing, of course, a culture, and we can go on and on across the platform over which the government has a responsibility, simply because to whom much is given, much is expected, and they have the entire blasted treasury at their disposal. They have the reserves that these people have misused and abused, and what is dangerous for us, they continue to tell us how well they are doing by concocted and contrived stories, and not giving us very simple statistical facts so that we can make a comparison, such as, what is the state of the reserves today? No, they give you all kind of convoluted story, and they go there today and talk about constitutional reform as if that will, of course, improve our circumstance if we cannot, of course, augment the reserves, fill the central bank, augment or increase the consolidated fund, or expand the economy so that our GDP growth is such that it can sustain and maintain not just the quality of life and standard of living for those who are in the present generation, but those to come. That is the kind of vision and the kind of action that we would have voted a government into. And mind you, since you're playing stupid, or if you're playing stupid, let me tell you, that is the same thing they tell you they will do, you know. They will tell you how good they are in addressing crime. Remember the 10-point plan crime issue that Rowley gave us? He done with that. Remember when he told us that he wouldn't interfere with the, but not the reserves, but certainly the subsidies, or indeed property tax, because you have to bill into it. Why he didn't say it, but he had to bill into it that we could do without it. How come today is a different story? That is how you have to analyze. Do not be foolish. Do not to be seen as a dunderhead who cannot analyze. They've lost the election in 1986. They've lost the election in 1995. They've lost the election in 2000. They've lost the election in 2010. And in 2001, it was, of course, the biasness of the late Prime Minister and President Robinson, his own animosity against. Imagine that a personal issue created consequences of a tremendous negative nature for Trinidad and Tobago when he handed, of course, the prime ministerial position to Manning, and they made full use of it with the limited budget they had, because they couldn't make a budget, and it would have been the same thing Manning would have done to Pandey if the mantra was given to Pandey, but it was given to the PNM, and he made full use of it. Everybody had a ministerial position. It could have been the largest cabinet ever. And this nincompoop trying to tell us that we must measure his frugality and his integrity and his management skills by having a smaller cabinet than that of Kamala Prasad Bisesa. He probably really believes that we are asinine specimen of humanity, and that he alone come out from where the child emerges at birth. Well, I want to tell Rowley that he ought to have been the afterbirth. That is how loath the population and how low the population think of him. So we must be clear. We must be visually sound, and we must be consistent. And if you have the arguments, there is no need to introduce superstition. That has a role to play in the politics as well. We have seen that when, of course, Rowley and they couldn't, of course, identify Robinson as an Indian, and therefore they start to use the necromancy talk, and they say how he put the dragon on the Red House, and that is why. And you have some foolish Baptist people who went along with that nonsense. And a few weeks into government, some 13 inmates of the St. Anne's asylum, mental asylum, died of food poisoning. Don't forget that. So there's nothing, in other words, sacrosanct about these criminals. So when we only talk about, of course, Likoto and all of that, Likoto is to the extent to which he believes it, but is always your basis for making a decision must be nestled in pragmatism and, of course, delivery and ability. Because if what he was saying is true, then something has gone wrong, because everything he touched has turned to the biblical pillar of salt. The man is a total Sodom and Gomorrah by himself. And we countenancing that and giving him some kind of credit that he simply does not just merited, does not have the ability, does not have the capacity. His decisions to, of course, recruit ministers is flawed to the core. Every single minister can be considered to be a compound ass, every single area. And there's always something nestled in conmanship, something sinister, something self-serving, something to help finish Balize House. I am going to play for you now, of course, Munilal, to give you an appreciation as to the hogwash people speak. And when I hear people saying that people are still giving, no, I will accept some people. I will accept a decreasing amount of people. But to give the blanket statement that somehow there is a majority in the population that sees Rowley and Day as credible, as electoral material, well, I will always refer them to Tobago. And don't tell me, if Tobago didn't exist, and the quotas that they got in Tobago as they did, I could imagine how those of you who still giving Rowley and them some kind of electoral superiority and some kind of political guruism. No, it's a bunch of con men. You just see it there. Listen to Munilal, because I was amazed, not surprised, but amazed. Because we were talking about it, that of course Warner, the same man who got charged for illegally in quarrying and Dr. Rowley's good friend, and suddenly he get a license. I doubt any one of us would have been able to get that. So it demonstrates the kind of conspirators syndicate of criminals that has, of course, assembled at the highest executive officers in the country and acting and working in their personal interess, whilst of course feeding us with all kinds of nonsense like banana and monkey and of course and likoto jumbi and all kind of nonsense. But let's go straight to the lines immediately. The lines are open. A pleasant good night.
LENNOX.
Hey.
You hear me good?
Well, loud and clear, my friend.
Right. You remember the factory report?
Yes.
They say if you didn't get that pass in 2 days, the whole banking industry shut down in Trinidad.
Oh yeah. What they call it? Something banking, banking where the banks are decommissioned and not connected to the international system through the United States. And I remember that, and of course, right? And everybody was on that, happing on that, and saying that the opposition was wrong and all kind of nonsense.
And up to now they didn't implement that.
Yeah.
They never implemented.
Yeah, de facto legislation, because they got the legislation eventually. The opposition was calm and cool, and they got their way in terms of what they had to say, and it was sufficiently long enough so that the population will have an appreciation. And afterwards, of course, we continue to, of course, be under the radar, not only of the against factor, because that's an American thing, but we have a European one where, of course, there's another agency based in France called the. I'll get it during the course of the program, but go ahead.
So how the country running?
By VAPs on fumes,
right?
VAPs fumes.
Watch me. That is one of the biggest conjob they ever put on the population.
Yeah.
That factor business, but that is the most I could say. I can't go further than that, but people with sense, they know what I'm talking about. I felt like you could investigate that. Right?
Yeah.
And how people are attacking the opposition. Oh, this, that, and that. Camera side up. Up to now, they implement. So I just say we operated by VAPs.
Yeah.
Eh? Now they want you to take with the constitutional reform. Why? All the
And you just come off a program of what? Of what? Local government reform. So they come up with these, what I consider to be amorphous, nebulous, non-implementable, because them can't implement nothing.
No.
And try to, of course, hoodwink the population and taking the population for asses. But if you know how that has hurt me, to know big men and women falling for that kind of nonsense and saying that they will go in office because of that. So they know that can't happen, and they only have to reference Tobago. They know that.
And they go and take grave and he never get the constitutional reform part.
Yes.
He fights for that right too. So
Oh, Trinidad different.
We had that, you know.
Oh, Trinidad different. It's not the same people. Go ahead, man. Yeah.
But Eric Williams and Ellis Clark change the thing.
Yes.
And have it how it is now.
Yeah.
That them have all the say.
Yeah, to make a prime minister a king, if he so wishes. So it was dependent on the moral and ethical pillars and the quality and standard of the character and personality of the person. And the PNM has failed in that regard to put this rapscallion as head of their business after all these years. And they mustn't understand, and they don't know they will feel the wrath of the people. Let them continue to live in a fantasy world and bury their heads in the sand. Soon it will come upon them, and they will see that the PNM will be no more.
When the Islam come out of the government, he come and tell you what kind of man he is free the man. That's why you agree to that. And he hear the whole story after. Kamal, all them tell you about Eric Williams after. The man was a Rosicrucianist, you know. You know he was a Rosicrucianist.
I don't care whether he's a Rosicrucianist, whether he's a symbolist, whether he's a Russian. The fact of the matter is that we have a country to save from the foundation that these fellas laid, that clearly was a foundation of sand and quicksand.
That's why he thinking they're going to lose this election. And you want the constitutional reform now. So in case they lose, they could have a say. Because right now the opposition have no say. They'll tell you that
but
straight.
he has no moral authority, because what he will say is that the constitutional reform refer to, among other things, but a fundamental pillar, quite apart from the run-of-the-mills, because that would have been implemented. And of course, he's going to use that to say why Kamala and them didn't implement, of course, 2 terms for a prime minister, and of course recall and so on. Well, we already understand why recall is impractical, but certainly 2 terms is a practical one. Yeah. But what is important, the point I'm making is that he has taken on record a position of Eric Williams that PR proportional representation is a dagger for the PNM, because they want winner take all, and they rule as they see fit, as we are seeing today
And exactly, that was a Williams thing.
Yes, that's right. And Rowley reiterated that. And here it is, no constitutional reform in any country such as Trinidad and Tobago could put aside or ignore proportional representation, given the diversity of the society. Yeah.
Williams cost them, get rid of them.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows what that could lead to. Look what's going on today.
And then I'm seeing something. I hope I'm wrong. I saw something where they say revert back to the original arrangement for the selection of commissioner. In other words, leave it in the hands of the Prime Minister only. That's what I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not normally wrong when I read something, and of course it has attracted my attention. I red flag it. But
who says that now?
The reformers, the people who gave who Rowley appointed to look at the constitution and have these consultations. So he say. Yeah, but the shame. Just now, caller. Just now, I have someone on the other line. But yeah, the shame they had to put it in because it would not appear to be genuine. But Rowley and them not on that, and Rowley would know that part of the constitutional reform in this country must be an important element would be proportional representation, but we know that the PNM not on that. So this is an exercise in futility. You have to have a government with a solid landslide majority in order to implement it, such as what NAR had, and such as what Kamala Prasad Bisesa had, that she has to get again in order to do that as fundamental rather than leaving it in the latter part of her administration.
Remember I tell you the other night
that
if they lose this election, all them things Kamala will Bella Joe and what have you, they gonna call it what do they call the airport? Caution.
Yeah.
Caution.
Either that or they mention it at all. You know, they don't mention it at all, but utilizing it like hell. Right now, the Cuba Hospital is the centerpiece for dengue, and now they are saying that there is a dengue crisis. All the time they deny it. Something like how they started off COVID. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
2 houses away from me. Had resources. Right?
Yeah.
And then Panday built the airport and the man telling me about COVID. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I don't call shit. I said, meaning what?
Yeah, but it got an award for the best airport in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually. So
I said, what are you talking about? Something like all that.
Yeah, that is a PNM propaganda. You know, all of them should be afterbirth, as far as I'm concerned. They simply are destructive and counterproductive and counter-nationalistic and patriotic.
But Eric Williams put that in the air. There's only he could call that.
Right, yeah, well, let's hope they die out with it, because if they say they go die hard, they're certainly going to die quick.
I'm going to talk tonight and he must mention Kamala.
Yeah, that is treason, man.
I want to come with the constitutional reform.
Yeah, that's treason. That's treasonous. The way how the PNM had run the country, and this fella is no damn different. He's worse than anybody before. So imagine he would have, if he was in Eric Williams days, well, you know, he couldn't be where he is at all. Neither Manning. Yeah, because they would have been persona non grata. And if they formed their own party, you would also understand where they would have been, out in the hot sun or in the very cold depths of the Gulf of Paria. Yeah. All right, well, let me take the next call. Yeah, okay then. Yes, indeed. Sorry about that, caller. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, Lennox.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night to you.
About this constitutional reform, I didn't listen to them today. But as you said, they have to have a great majority, right?
Yeah.
What happened? Talking like the way he talking is like if he going and win the election by a landslide. How we doing that now?
Well, I was saying, there's just fat talk and old talk. These fellas are political afterbirths.
Yeah, but when you self-talking all this, set a long story about that poor talk, talk good thing now, man. We don't have time
Is the
for
caller,
them.
the caller raised it, the caller raised it, and I have to respond. Let me get it again.
I ain't talking about LENNOX. You start the program with that, so that is why the caller was talking about it, and even I myself, we don't care about that. We studying to go and protest. That's what we have to talk right now. We want to hit the streets. We want to jam this man before election. We ain't want to sitting down right now and waiting and dip finger. That I tell you that ain't working. We want to protest from now until election. Right? All this thing we're going to play with Mulinal and thing.
Yeah, they're not in
I ain't satisfied with how Mulinal talk today, you know.
They're not in Napa.
Give all kind of promises.
I say the PNM not in Napa today. But based on what you're saying, the PNM not in Napa today playing the ass. Alright? They're not in Napa. So I mustn't talk. I mustn't talk about it. Right?
I'm not hearing you clear, you know.
I say that the PNM is not in Napa today, so I mustn't talk about it. They have a special convention today on the subject, and I mustn't talk about it. I that stupid. No, I ain't that stupid.
We don't care about them and the stupid talk, LENNOX.
You hear what I say again?
We don't care about them and the reform thing. We know that is nonsense. It can't work. You know, tell the man that for them to have the same thing, they have to have a majority.
So tell me what you must talk about.
Them ain't have no majority. LENNOX, we don't care about them.
Tell me what you must.
We want to go
you came out shooting from the hips. Yeah, let me hear. Go and protest.
We listen.
How you organizing that? How you organizing it?
About them.
Right. How you organizing? How you organizing protest?
People.
Tell me when.
Promise them giving the sycophants. We don't know nothing.
You see, you're talking about it and you don't want me to talk about it. Go ahead. You talk about it.
No, but I'm not talking about that.
Yes, of course you talk about it.
We want to protest.
Yes.
People don't want to hear them thing with a stupid thing with this man.
Right, that is what you say. When you say that, you are saying.
The thing is song and clear. It have a kind of.
All right, let me just.
Like when you talk to me, it's song and like if you're underwater, so you have to fix something when you don't talk to me.
Okay, let me see.
You might be hearing me, but I ain't hearing you too clear.
Right, how you organizing?
Right, fix it.
Tell me when.
Fix it, LENNOX.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, okay. All right, okay. Maybe I have to move a little away from the mic because I think it seemed to be all right. Let me just check another check. Let me give another check to see. All right, go ahead, talk. Hearing you. Yes, indeed, people. Of course, this is a beautiful session. It started very, what I should say, argumentative, but it's all part and parcel of the process. Microphone right, blue. Right. So I'm in a good place. So I don't know. I heard it on my monitoring system inside, sounding good. So it might be something outside. Let me just lower the volume here a little bit. All right. So people call. The lines are open, but let's go to Munilal. And there are those who, of course, are saying that the opposition is doing. Not what they expect, but the opposition believes that it is doing fine. And I too are of the view and can confirm that is what they in fact have done. And if we focus there, we will have a better appreciation and give a better analysis. I am talking about analysis and common sense. It's not about what you think, because to organize...
Now, there are people in the national community and so on. You hear, what is the opposition doing? What is the opposition saying? The opposition is not doing this. The opposition is not doing that. And some people have the unmitigated gall to suggest that is a weak opposition and so on. Let me remind people, and members of the national community, just a few matters. It is the opposition that exposed for all to see the matter of the scandal involving the purchase and the sending back of helicopters years ago. It is the opposition that exposed the alleged gun possession of firearms, high-powered firearms, by children of a government minister. It is the opposition that exposed the government on the Mosquito Creek, the Mosquito Crack scandal. It is the opposition that exposed this government on Tresh Trail housing development, where an entire set of housing units had to be abandoned because of poor infrastructure work and faulty design, engineering and architectural designs and so on. It is the opposition that exposed this government on the construction of the Ministry of Health headquarter building. It is the opposition that brought to the parliament the matter of Shanghai terminating the contract at the Central Block Port of Spain. It is the opposition that went to the parliament.
Yes, indeed, of course. Just a little, yes, a little technical issue on my side. Let me make sure that I have it covered. Yes, look at here. All right, good.
We stand united in the belief that if you empower community, the community empowers the country.
We are the party that gave every
amount of units at that court and Wood Green construction. This issue, brothers and sisters, of the HDC had to be abandoned because of poor infrastructure work and faulty design, engineering and architectural designs and so on. It is the opposition that exposed this government on the construction of the Ministry of Health headquarter building. It is the opposition that brought to the parliament the matter of Shanghai terminating the contract at the Central Block Port of Spain. It is the opposition that went to the parliament to tell the population and expose the government on the OAS NIDCO arbitration. It is the opposition that exposed this government on the corruption on the secondary roads rehabilitation company that led to the close down of that company. Today it is the opposition that raised this matter of a deal where HDC, now HDC has gone back to its scandalous days of 2010 and before. They have gone back to the Calderheart Udicott HDC days of 2010 and before we came into office in May 2010. It was August 5th this year, recently, that myself as Shadow Minister of Housing raised this issue, brothers and sisters, of the HDC on the verge of giving a contract, selecting as a preferred bidder a company by the name of China Harbor Engineering Corporation out of China. We raised this issue on a press release on August 5th, 2024, where they were giving out a contract for $475 million, the HDC. I call that scandalous, contempt, offensive. First, that Trinidad and Tobago has excess capacity, idle capacity for construction of homes, contractors, plant and equipment, machinery, manpower, skill. Why do...
Let me pause here because you see, I've been looking at the trend of some people, not the majority, the minority by far, but seem to have a position that you cannot be an effective opposition if you are not physically aggressive and if you don't appear to be physically aggressive and so on and so forth. Well, I want to remind them that when the UNC was in government, it was a similar approach of the PNM. They gave Kamla Prasad Bisesa no end of talk about, of course, what we know today were false accusations of corruption, nepotism, and cronyism. And what transpired? The PNM, try as it may, couldn't get Kamla to call elections before it was constitutionally due. Let's not waste time. So you have a fellow like Rowley, you expect him to call elections before? I mean, I was predicting last year, I predict the year before, because of the solidification and the irrefutability and the obvious ostentatious, or should I say ostentatious should be the word, ostentatious, conspicuous corruption and nepotism. They catch the man with the hand, in every case, right in the cookie jar. The emails was a figment of Rowley's imagination. Nobody knew, understood, have any evidence. That was a figment of Rowley's imagination. If the claim of somebody have a vault with money in it, and that those projects, those mega projects, whether it be the aquatic center, whether it be the velodrome, or whether it be the hospital, were corrupt. If somebody said that the country was running on fumes, that is the extent to which they thief out the money. That is what was operating at the time, and people were prepared to believe that. And because Rowley gave the impression as the leader, as a fella who is a no-nonsense man, because he would have attacked her and, of course, tried to undermine Manning whilst he was prime minister. In fact, so much so that he was relegated, of course, to the backbench. They began to believe the fantasy of Rowley, but mind you, it had no political traction that one would have expected, having regard to the avalanche of accusations leveled against the PP and Kamala Persad, the UNC at the time. Why can I say so without fear of contradiction? Because one would have expected a 27 seat for the PNM, and climbing in 2015, he only got 23 seats. So the population was in doubt, one, and two, they gave still the UNC the benefit of the doubt, even though, of course, they didn't get as far as the numbers and the ratio is concerned. They didn't gain the government. They lost the government. You cannot tell me that at a time when the evidence is so pellucid, so irrefutable, it's so conspicuous, the evidence is there, it's clear, it never happened so before. Because, and why can we now say that it was figment of Rowley's pernicious but very fertile imagination, and that he has a proclivity or a predilection for evil and saying and doing evil things? Why can we say that at this point in time? Not only are the evidence blatant and in your face, but the fact that all of what they said, inclusive, of course, the emails and the country running on fumes, and that every single minister was corrupt, and they're getting the belly big because, of course, they came in there like Mr. Howard Cat and all them kind of hogwash Rowley was talking. He cannot prosecute one person except, of course, in the private sector where, of course, the EMBD issue is still ventilating. And even in that case, people, even in that case, Namalco, which is one of the companies that they say was engaged in a cartel type arrangement under the UNC. They counter charge or counter brought the government before the courts. And even the ventilation of those cases that the government brought, 6 of them, 4 of them were adjudicated in favor of Namalco, in the sense that the court awarded Namalco the money that, not all, but the money that they were claiming. Of course, Rowley and they will claim a simpleton victory, obviously, but they didn't expect that. They expected the court to say the entire thing was, of course, gotten by Bobol, and therefore you cannot ask the court to countenance Bobol, and therefore they lose their investment if you can consider it an investment in a situation of Bobol. And there are 2 more matters outstanding. For what? For assessment in favor of Namalco. Namalco will end up getting close to the $1 billion that they were claiming from the government, even though Rowley said no company in Trinidad and Tobago could have worked for $1 billion. That is one case. You see, they have gone silent on those matters and try, of course, to set up Anand Ramlogan and Ramdeen to see if they could, of course, manifest that which was a figment of their imagination, and now in office recognizing that it was not so. But of course, because they committed themselves in the campaign leading up to the 2015 and 2020 elections, when people, of course, decided to give them another chance, but they were reduced by 1 seat. Imagine if the UNC was in office and was reduced by 1 seat. How some people would have been rating that as a total and absolute defeat. Well, I tell you, if it could be a defeat for the if the UNC was in office, then it's a blasted defeat for the PNM in office. What are you telling me about? What are you telling me about? So there are those who will, of course, bellow and be in a state of emotional, what I consider to be steroids, without critically examining what is happening. And I am of the view that the UNC as an opposition has done marvelous. Because you see, all of those things that are being told about the UNC can be proven. That's the big difference. Anybody I challenge there now, you're a PNM sycophant or what? Tell me which one of the things that was brought by the UNC against the PNM that cannot be proven. In fact, I will prove it to you. Anyone. However, on the other hand, every single item that PNM brought under Rowley, through Rowley, about the UNC, they cannot prove. And don't tell me anything or any excuse anyone could make, because you see how ruthless, how brutal, how desperate the PNM is. They have gone so far as to manufacture evidence. This matter of Vincent Nelson, it ain't done there, no. That is a criminal conspiracy involving the entire cabinet of the Prime Minister of the country. That they have orchestrated a plot to undermine and to, of course, subvert the course of not natural, but of course, criminal justice. It's the same thing with the fake oil. When Rowley put his lawyer there to sanitize, essentially, the documents, that is culpability. I agree with the caller that constitutional change is one that is required, because it makes a prime minister under this constitution believe that don't matter what sin he would have committed, egregious as we are seeing this prime minister, because it is clear that the constitution was designed for persons with high moral and ethical standard, even though that is difficult to get. But of course, you have people who overdo it, and Rowley is one of those. Rowley engages, of course, in what is called stretching the barrel, stretching the issue so thin. He's saying, listen, I rape a schoolgirl, come and charge me now. That's what he is saying. He is saying, I interfere with illegally with a shortlist that is constitutionally sanctioned, secured, sacrosanct, well established and well ensconced. Charge me now, because I is prime minister. That is the level of beast that we have in the office of prime minister. and of course hiding behind a constitution that with the immorality that he has displayed and his brutal sense of right and wrong has engaged the population. And we have seen it, of course, in the way that they dole out to the friends and 1%ers projects and therefore the state resources. This man has to be lost in jail when it turn around. Because you don't tell me you will not give credit to the people of Tobago, and because you have this perception that the PNM is infallible somehow under this criminal, you fantasize and you make the phantasmagorical pronouncement, conjecture, invention that Trinidad people different. Trinidad people different, but the PNM lost the Moruga. Trinidad people different, but they lost handsomely the Shanky Grandi Corporation. PNM, Trinidad people different, but the UNC was able to make gains in, of course, PNM dominated corporations such as San Fernando, Arima, etc. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Come on. Let us be consistent. The writing is on the wall, and let us go for the jugular. This wanting to believe that somehow you're right because Rowley's still there. He's going to make moves. Yes, we understand that. But just as the people in Venezuela, they did their homework and they know the enemy, and we must do the same thing because we have a smaller population and it's easier to manipulate than, of course, over 27 million people. Minus 7, of course, that left the country. But they were able, of course, to mobilize a sufficient amount of persons to, of course, understand the system of elections. And they were able, of course, to keep what we will consider to be the stubs, but information from the computer, that when they go and tabulate and upload, they realize that, listen, Maduro lost the election by multiple millions. They're not going to waste time with this kind of I told you so and I believe so. That is belief. I deal with reality. Reality is, and anything else you could tell me is conjecture, is your own feeling. It is called ad hominem. That is your feeling. You tell me about the people in Tobago different from the people in Trinidad. You feel I don't know that, but in a particular context, not in the context of the elections and the common pain and ache and agony perpetrated by this man. Nobody can tell me. Every time I speak and I say, look what happened in Tobago, they're saying forget Tobago. How the hell you go forget Tobago when if the opposite was the case and it was 14-1, PNM get 14 seats, I bet you they would have been up in the air rejoicing because I told you so. Now that I told you so did not materialize, you tell me about Trinidad different. Hold your tail, anybody. I challenging with that, anybody. I am challenging anybody with that. So the proof of the pudding, because let's face it, all of these iniquities that are so irrefutable, the evidence is so palpable, so tactile. No No one with a modicum of common sense will introduce some kind of fantasy to say the PNM is infallible. How is that so? How is that so? I mean, you could argue that, of course, the fragmentation and the division between, of course, let's say, Farley and Watson Duke, it creates some friction. And there is where, of course, I will accept somebody's notion saying, well, listen, this is a possibility, and I will have to accept that. But there's also always the possibility too, that is, they will come together knowing that there is a common enemy that is more dangerous than they splitting up or disconnected or continuing their divisions. And I expect, as human beings, eventually they will see that. The elections ain't called yet. They don't tell me that you don't see the UNC on the ascendancy. That is a piece of madness as far as I'm concerned. Madness, unless you could show me where they are not by palpable proof. Frankly, don't talk to me. Show me that. Anything else is your perception, your conjecture. That's your feeling. There's no proof. And I go with proof. And as a scientist in my own right, because I mean, let's face it, to do forensic work, I have a diploma in not just in scientific, and don't get me vexed before I put it up on the screen too. I put it up. Fingerprint, handwriting, and you name it. So I deal with those kinds of issues. And I can only talk this on this program because on the ground report, Andy and my colleagues and they will have the attitude of going forward and pulling up your handbrake, those down the PNM, we know that they have a duty and responsibility because they are criminals and that they don't want to expose their backsides, so they're going to utilize the resources of the country, but the more they do it, is more they find themselves in more trouble. Listen to Munilal and you will have a better appreciation.
You need a foreign company to build houses. Why? When you have excess capacity here and you have idle equipment by locals, they went and got into some type of sweetheart deal. When this matter was raised by the opposition, the HDC, I want to remind you, I had a day, August 6th it was, I will never forget that day so long as I live, and maybe after, I will not forget it either. On that day, the HDC put out, and I have it in my hand here, not one, 3 media release to counter my statement. They issue media releases as you will have your meals 3 times a day. They had 3 media releases 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It got so bad on that day that I needed 2 Panadol because the media kept calling me, and every time I make a comment, HDC changed their release. So I said in the end, I will make no comment until I see their final release, which may never come. So I asked the HDC in my statement, I said, why did you not put the 2nd release first or put the 3rd release second? Why have me all evening commenting and you changing the release? 3 releases from the HDC. All wrong. But they attacked, of course, the former Minister of Housing. That was the only thing that stayed consistent in the 3 releases is they said they were taken aback by the former Minister of Housing, making statements that this process was improper. And they took note of it and they, of course, they condemned the former. HDC is surprised by the former line minister's statement that the tender process was questionable and it was lacking in integrity and lacking in terms of its credibility. They were attacking me. I live a few days after, God is great, to see a headline in the newspaper Saturday Express, I think you have it on your screen now, scrapped. Now, when I saw that, I thought it was a refinery. But it was the HTC, the day before, meaning Friday, issued a statement to the press scrapping the arrangement with China Harbor only after the Office of Procurement Regulation issued not one but two releases. I have them in my hand as well. They issued two releases I have in my hand, and you have it on your screen, it will come up, I'm sure. The releases indicated that two contractors, pursuant to the laws in this country, what they did is called challenge proceedings, meaning two contractors, I believe is NH International and Wood Green Construction, went to the Office of Procurement Regulation and filed challenge proceedings. Only when they had challenge proceedings, the HDC then jump up and say, okay, we cancel, we lock off that, we'll do that again. Why did you do it? If you issued three press releases to say that everything was above board, integrity, credibility, and the former line minister didn't know what he's talking about, why did you scrap the project? Why did you not stand your ground, as we say in the UNC? Why did you not stay and hold your ground and say, listen, everything was done above board? But I will tell you what is happening here. And this matter cannot end. The HDC must explain why they cancelled the project with China Harbor in hours after Wood Green Construction and NH International filed the challenge proceedings. Why? What do you have to hide? Because when they investigate that, you will have to explain. There is something called an evaluation committee. Let's use a big word, but really it is three people called the independent. It is called the Independent Evaluation Committee. I get right here for you. Independent Evaluation Committee, comprising financial expert, procurement expert, technical expert. They decided China Harbor, by the way, these three people. We want to know today, who are the members of the Independent Evaluation Committee that selected China Harbor at the Ministry of Housing and HDC? Who are they? Because China Harbor came in with a bid which, according to experts in the field, persons have said to us in the UNC, from the housing sector, they could not have been, the China Harbor could not have been sending in a realistic bid given the guidelines of tongue and country, given the guidelines of what is called the request for proposal, RFP. So the RFP had to be aligned with what you are tendering. They said that China Harbor could never have been building those amount of units at that cost consistent with the RFP and consistent with tongue and country guidelines and guidelines from other statutory authorities and entities. It was impossible for China Harbor to be building that. It would have been the equivalent of what is called a concrete jungle, high-rise buildings and so on, which is not in the RFP. So how were they selected? Why were they selected? Is a friend of the Prime Minister involved in this as well? Because this entire government is run by Rowley and Friends. This is not the PNM here. This is Rowley and Friends in charge. The whole government is run from the Gulf Coast. Is a friend involved in that? Why did you select China Harbor? Don't say you cancel it, just so tell us why. And let me ask the next question. When you decided China Harbor could not do the job for one reason and you scrapped that, why did you not give the second bidder? It's called Wood Green Construction. If you say the first bidder is unrealistic, to use a simple term, but it's more complex than that. If you say the first bidder proposal cannot fly, that's unrealistic, that cannot work. There's a second bidder, a third bidder, a fourth bidder. Why did you not go with the second bidder? Why you cancel? Why are you going to retender? Is it because China Harbor, or the interest behind China Harbor, can now reincarnate themselves into a next entity to go for the same contract? Why? This is the burning question. The corruption here runs deep. If China Harbor is scrapped, there's a second bidder, there's a third, there's a fourth. Because as the president of the construction sector said today, I think in the papers, when you have these bids, brothers and sisters, you know what happens? Construction companies, they spend enormous money. Let me tell you something, that is not changing the gate in front of your house, you know. That is not painting the wall, you know. That is technical work. It costs.
I said, of course, well, let me pause and take this call. Take this call because, of course, very, very interesting discussion tonight. Pleasant good night to welcome to the corridor, the Sunday edition.
Yep. Good night, Lennox. I hope you have a good day. Hey,
Yes.
Lennox, you know, Mr. Munila was asking why is China building houses here? Who's the minister in charge? There's some corruption and collusion. But the fact is, China is an investor in Trinidad, and not just Trinidad. China is a big investor in like countries like Jamaica, Guyana, Antigua and Barbuda, Cuba, Bahamas, and I have some numbers here. China invested over $3 billion in Jamaica. In Guyana, it did $3 billion. In Trinidad, China invested already $2.3 billion. And we're not talking TT dollars, we're talking US currency, okay? And in Cuba, well, they did hundreds of millions. But the fact is, China is into the various sectors China wants to invest in the Caribbean. And that would be like maybe extracting metals. They say they want to do agriculture, but they're really big on building infrastructure. And when you have trading partners who have money to invest in your country, you would probably deal with them because China wants to have a stronger foot in the Caribbean. Also, our Prime Minister supports the Republic of China, the People's Republic of China. They don't recognize Taiwan as an independent country. They see Taiwan as part of China. And we are one of the countries that our Prime Minister spoke on our behalf and embraced China. And I think these are questions we have to kind of ask. If we're embracing China so much and China is investing in our country, why are our people not getting those jobs? And when the jobs do come, they're usually short-term jobs, even if it's local infrastructure done by local vendors. There's always shoddy work, and it's always ballooning into billions of dollars when it was like $100 million. Pretty soon it's going to morph into like $50 billion or something, 50 million, 100 million. So it's like, I think Mr. Munila should just talk about that, talk about our trade relations with China. And not just say, I had to take 2 Panadol because I couldn't believe this. That doesn't help us. You know what I mean? You know, talk sensibly. Tell us what's going on. Don't just come and hug a teddy bear and say, look, I built this hospital in Cuba for children. Well, show us the hospital inside. You know, yes, we saw a commercial video. But recently, when was the last time a camera went into that hospital in Cuba? I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying, as the people, we deserve to know where that money went. And with the Prime Minister, we need to know how he get that money to build Balaji House. We want to know where he get all that concrete from, because we saw local contractors delivering cement. Was that paid for? Or did they delivering it as a gift to the Prime Minister? Because you can't do that. That's a conflict of interest, right? Kusal had that. They're giving gifts, and they're giving gifts to government, and then government is giving you contracts in return. That is fraud. That is collusion right there. And we need to hear things like this, but you know, we don't want to hear you taking 2 Panadol and you have to get more paper, and every time you make a comment, they're coming back with a media release. We want to see somebody going to freaking jail. We want to see somebody get arrested. That EMBD thing, that Namalco was doing, building those houses and stuff, you know. I mean, that was a lot of money. That wasn't some change. And those houses, they said they were not built, and that contract was awarded during the UNC tenure, and it carried out to the PNM, and now the courts awarded that. But that's all people's money. I don't care which party is involved in this, but the fact is we're not running a real country, Lennox, and we need to have people to come right out and talk about it sensibly and not joke about it, because this is money down the drain, you know. A lot of money getting wasted and people still struggling. Little children, all these radio stations begging for books and money and backpack and all these things, doing all these drives because parents don't have money. I don't know, man. This is talking like a man. When you say I don't know, man, I should have said this is just not how you run a democracy. And if the Prime Minister is dealing with China, he needs to tell us his position on China, because if he's speaking on our behalf, especially about Venezuela and other countries, we need to know where we stand. And Amy Brown is not going to tell us anything because he's like a little teddy bear sitting somewhere in a corner all the time, or saving somebody on an airplane. Anyway,
Yeah.
that was my comment, Lennox.
Thank you very much.
I'm not being critical of the UNC. I'm just saying, hey, don't just show us papers and flashing things and giving us revelations of corruption. Just tell us. You say, look, this was wrong in procurement. We need to have the police investigating, and we're going to demand the police investigating. And if they don't investigate it, we are going to make it into a big deal now. We have to tell everybody every day and get in the media every day. That's what they do in other countries.
Yeah.
But you see, the media is bought and sold. The media has a price too, like a lot of politicians.
Yeah.
All right, that was my.
Thank you very much. Well, of course, this conversation started with the potency of the opposition. That specific case that he brought, frankly, it had nothing to do with whether or not a country is having relations with China, and China, of course, with its Belt and Road Initiative, have decided, of course, to invest and encourage and or construct infrastructure across the globe. The Western Hemisphere notwithstanding, we are part and parcel of that because they have a big thing in Africa as well. But what Moilal specifically, and I hold no brief, I merely would like the facts to be laid on the table so that we can dispassionately treat with it without emotions and without the interjection of somebody's feeling in a particular way, or somebody has a suspicion, or they went into the Obeah and that is what they were told, or they had some spiritual epiphany, and as a consequence they want to share that with the national community. It's all well and good. This is a democracy, and nobody would fault you for that. But don't come to me without, of course, those palpable, tactile proof and expect me to swallow it or to gravitate, because I will not. Now, Moilal was talking specifically about the corruption involved in that particular contract. Because under the UNC, in fact, all those mega projects of the UNC were constructed by the Chinese, as was the case with Manning, Napa, Sapa, the diplomatic center, etc. In every one of those cases, whether it be Napa, Sapa, the diplomatic center, there has been overruns and, of course, excessive cost. That is a pellucid fact. And the point I started with, since of course you're focusing on the Chinese involvement, so I'm putting that nuance or that variable into the mix now. Even at that level, one would have expected that the aquatic center, the hospitals and the loans that Rowley said he met there, Rowley and they said they met there when the UNC demitted office, or put another way, when they gained office in 2015. You are yet to tell us where the corruption is. On the other hand, we can see, because here it is, there has been no project that was stalled, and of course I stand corrected. Anybody could call in and tell me under the UNC Kamala Prasad Bisesa, which project that you would have identified that the then opposition under Rowley raised a red herring, and then of course the project was stopped. I know about the former minister, I think, of planning, Ms. King, whose son or somebody like that got a contract, but was a couple $100,000, I think about $300,000 or $400,000, and of course she resigned on the basis of that. Here we are talking about hundreds of millions, and not a soul resigning voluntarily. But what we know is that there is uncomfortableness, there is disquiet with Dr. Rowley's relationship with players whether it be the head of NH International, whether it be his proclaimed friend in the AV drilling matter, whether it be, of course, his friend Warner. And the pattern of behavior is the same. Take material from the Scarborough Hospital, carry it to land it. The same thing with the repairs of the Prime Minister's residence in Tobago, with the same players, to his change of name by the same location, Landit, where he, Rowley, is constructing a multi-story family dwelling similar to that of Imsbert, who himself is under question in terms of stamp duty paid for property in Port of Spain and how much he paid for it. But both of them engaged in these family high-rise apartments costing millions to the eventual, let's say, users or the purchasers. Millions, but came to the parliament and insert a measure into law that says you do not pay taxes until 25 years hence. Yeah. And mind you, it was so designed to assist Rowley and Day that it cannot be seen as accidental. And I'm sure that in any court of law, acting in the best interest of Trinidad and Tobago, abandoning or abdicating your oath of office to do right, and quite apart from the various clauses of the integrity in public life, quite apart from the Larceny Act, and we can go on and on. My common sense tells me that once out of office, Rowley and they have some serious answers to provide to the criminal justice investigators and to the civil court as well for their conduct. I cannot say the same for Kamla Prasad. In fact, it was Al-Rari who in the parliament said in non-certain, and don't get me vexed before I play it, you know. It said in non-certain terms that Kamla Prasad Bisesa and her family benefited from AGC contracts. And before he could be taken to the, under the fear that he will be taken to the Privileges Committee of the Parliament for lying on another member, for misleading the nation, he went back under pressure and said that he apologized to Kamla Prasad Bisesa for making that statement. No such person in the PNM under this avalanche of accusations of greed, avarice, including Rowley. And why? Because it is clear they are a bunch of corrupt individuals who, once they are there, can cover up, can obfuscate, can remain silent, control of the documentation and the paper trail, and they are comfortable with that. So that recusals in the hundreds per individual and individuals is par for the course. Is it in the public's interest to eviscerate or to disembowel the procurement legislation? And by such a tenuous majority it was passed, so that matters that come straight to the cabinet, the so-called government-to-government arrangement, financial matters as to deal with budgetary support and or financing, medical equipment was also eviscerated, taken out of the procurement legislation. And when the evidence is revealed, it shows one, as far as financing is concerned, small pin or strong brother is the man to benefit from that. As far as medical equipment is concerned, almost enigmatic, almost mysteriously, I don't know, but people connected to Al-Rari is connected to that, directly engaging the attention of the cabinet itself. No one else. So it's a conspirators group. And that has nothing to do with the fact that how come Petrotrin was closed down in the way it did, having regard to the overtures that were made prior and the assurance that was given by the Prime Minister of this country, indicating that Petrotrin will not be closed down. But even when the decision was made to close it down, and it had to be by the entire cabinet, collective or majority responsibility, let me put it that way, collective responsibility. So if the majority say yes, everybody has to take the responsibility to say yes to. In other words, they too are culpable. But in that circumstance, we also had, and do not forget, and lest you wallow in your illusion and concoction, mentally and otherwise, when, of course, in the attempt to sell the oil refinery, Patriotic, the oilfield workers trade union entity that was organized by the OWTU to purchase, having regard to the fact that the Prime Minister gave them almost a special arrangement for them. He said if they want to, they can. So one expects that they would have gotten it for a peppercorn price because of the history and the nexus, the connectivity of the oilfield workers to the oil refinery and that industry in general, the carbon producing industry in this country. And remember very distinctly, when just before, or not too close, but close enough to the elections of 2020, Innsbruck stood up in the parliament and said that he is of now, of course, the cabinet has taken a decision to award Patriotic the oil refinery. There was much cheer and beating of chests and peacock display. But I remember very distinctly, and I wonder once again if that is in the best interest of the population. We need to understand that these fellas have committed multiple sins against the citizens and the taxpayers of this country, whether or not it was good policy, whether or not it was good in the public's interest to waive the $700 million US up front. They waive it, claiming somehow they're acting in our interest by giving a private company, Patriotic in this case, a blight to say that they give them that, they won't take it, they will leave them with it so that they could develop their business. Well, I say to them, if that was the case, if that was truly the case, why didn't you give a similar blight to people who worked hard, developed their respective businesses, found themselves in a cash flow issue, whether it be the Clico Investment Bank, whether it be other entities within that conglomerate, led by, of course, the man himself, the African, I consider him to be an African man. Why wasn't Clico and its principals be given a similar blight, negotiated? Why, Rowley? Why? Why wasn't, of course, that same group who have demonstrated initiative and entrepreneurial zeal? Instead, you saw it as an opportunity to take it from them. Even though each of the businesses, including Republic Bank, began to resuscitate, began to show viability at just around that time. And because a threat was made, which could have been easily negotiated, what do? You went to the court and say they can't pay, and you wind them up, and you take these assets, and now they're failing as well, because you put them into this investment fund, and there's another fund that they created, and it lost under this government. A bunch of quacks and conmen, as always, for their friends and family. So I am not surprised when Munilal tonight to talk about Warner, because we were concerned that these white trucks coming out from Sealots, they say Warner purchased the concrete facility there, part of Presticon. And then, similar to moving stuff from the Scarborough Hospital to Landate, Chorchong announces and boasts that he cleaned a channel in Sealots, and for the first time in 15 years, and beating the chest, when he should be walking to the proverbial gallows. That's where he should be walking, because clearly there's a nexus between, of course, the presence of Warner down there, and of course utilizing state resources to clean a channel so that they could, of course, export and import, or at least use ships to bring in and carry out material. But typical of them, do us evil, beat the chest afterwards. Do us evil, beat the chest afterwards, and expect to get like Farmer Oak Dog. After this call, I'll tell you what happened to Farmer Oak Dog. I'll tell you what happened to Farmer Oak Dog. A pleasant good night.
Good
Welcome.
night, Leno.
Good night.
Leno?
Yes, I'm here. A pleasant good night. Pleasant good night. Are you hearing me?
Good night to you, Lennox.
Yes,
good night to you and to everybody on the chat.
Yes.
Lennox,
Hey.
I am so glad that... Lennox, are you hearing me?
Loud and clear, everybody hearing you.
Right. You know, we have to get that established.
Yes.
Lennox,
yes.
I am so happy that you have played that tape from Dr. Monilal from today. But I also want you, I'm glad that you're concentrating on that, right? I'm glad. You see, when people want to come and talk, they F1 free. That UNC ain't doing nothing and the UNC ain't doing this. Wasn't it the UNC who raised that issue with the houses? It's they exposed it.
But none of them could do it. None of them could do it. None of us could do it. It's them had to do it. And that is significant.
They had to do it.
It's complex. It's complicated. It's sophisticated. And we can't articulate that as how they can. Because that is the job. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, Lennox, and he also he touched a point there today when he said people saying UNC doing nothing and UNC weak and UNC this. Well, he let them have it. He let the bullies and them have it. He read it out what they have been doing in the last 9 years. Yeah. And I keep saying, Lennox, that if UNC did not go to the Privy Council, we would never have had a local government election because Rowley was lying to the people.
How dare you take away that level of credit? That flies deep into the heart of our democracy, and they saved us. They saved us by that action. What again could have saved us? A march?
Huh.
A march, right? Yeah, right. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's all they want because they want to. I don't know. Like they have some agenda. They have some agenda, Lennox. You hear? And I think it's a stupid agenda. But let me tell you something, Lennox, and he read it out. He read out all what was done. Yeah. And I just was so glad that they touched on it. You understand? That they keep saying that they ain't doing nothing, But the things that Lennox, the opposition is doing, none of them can do it.
We can't.
None of them capable of doing it. All they can do is run them up like over diarrhea.
Their fundamental is $400 and millions of dollars. Them saving Trinidad and Tobago, you and I, because if they didn't find out about the central block, if they didn't find out about the recent one, it means therefore that money would have gone into some private hand and they do some slipshod work and of course and they beat the chest as is the case, as I mentioned, with respect to Stuart Young and this dredging of sealots, when in fact it's really for Warner. They did that for, and when they recuse themselves, it's really for themselves. And the opposition has been on the toes. They have been doing their work. I have to be practical. They
have been doing their work.
Yes.
That's why some damn others just said that they are fat in the wind. That's all they are, fat in the wind. You hear the next one talking about now, about the Kuva Children Hospital. But if you find they're only flinging around papers, go and ask them, file freedom of information. And go and ask Rowley to take it to the hospital. Take it to the hospital. If you so want to see it. Because it's an old video. And try to create the impression that Kamala and them ain't do nothing neither. Sometimes that is not a wonder, you know. I think it's a 4 male wheat plant.
No, well, I think these people are genuine in their position. But it's just that they have to be able to nestle their argument in something that is provable. For example, if I have to deal with the hospital, I would say that it was Diyal Singh who told the nation that they are going to gut the Kuva hospital because it was deemed to be a children's hospital constructed under the UNC as that. Take the equipment from there and put it in the Mount Hope Children's Hospital, the Wendy Fitzwilliam, because they want to have one such hospital. That is where the equipment won. I could have said that, but of course, if you don't know, you don't know. But now that you know, you will have, of course, to change your position, unless the intent is something different.
And I find Lennox, through the freedom of information or some information, she could file a request and let them take her for a site visit. Request a site visit.
No, I hear you, but
all your doubts that what it is going on, and also file a Freedom of Information Act with that paper that Munilal waving. Munilal is not a stupid person. What he has there is the proof of what it is was going on. Lennox, and if it wasn't for Mrs. Prasad, the assessor, we would have never known about Jindal.
Of course.
And then you kept telling us that Jindal wrote a private letter to Rowley, right, expressing his concern why he pulling out of the project, right? If it wasn't for Mrs. Prasad, Mr. Sanders, we would never have known what was going on with Sanders and this rice deal. Lennox, the next thing to blow up in his face is this rice deal. Wait for it.
Yeah.
Wait for it. It's coming one at a time. One at a time it's coming. But Lennox, I want to read something for you.
Go ahead.
It was written by Medina, it was Mirage, sorry. Every time Faris brought a bill that required a special majority, which was needed to protect constitutional rights, and had it passed via a simple majority with the help of the independent senators, our constitution was reformed right under our noses. Every time Faris passed a bill to allow executive executive overreach into the independent institution to undermine separation of power, our constitution was reformed.
Of course.
Delivering to us on a silver platter the head of democracy. For the past 9 years, we have been undergoing constitutional reform. Don't we feel it? And she was right. She is right. Every time Faris do something like that, right? It was constitutional reform. And the biggest piece of constitutional reform, in my opinion, was what they did with Vince Nelson. That witness tampering. They tried to change everything, and now we try to push the narrative of constitutional reform. Big meeting today to fool what? To fool the people.
I don't think they will be. I don't think they will be. That's exercise in futility and excess spending. That's all that is. Yeah, because they have the kickback monies and the slush funds that they have created. And you just have to watch at Barry's house and know that there's plenty more where that come from.
I know. Exactly. And LENNOX, and the big deal is today. He's going to remove the three ship from on the coat of arms, and he's going to put steel band. I think he should take the three ship and put it where the monkey put the nuts. He tried to do like when he do the Barry's tie. You understand? He's going to change the coat of arms now to play. Yes, look, we do something. Look, PNM do something. But it is too little, too late. You can change what you want on the coat of arms. You're going. You're not staying there, Rowley. LENNOX, thanks a lot and have a good night.
Yes, we have to be real, man. And I am only going to treat with realism, and I will respond appropriately. And I expect a similar response as well as we nestle our arguments in palpable things. Do not come and tell me what you think and what should be. No, it must start with where we are, what has happened, and then of course make your argument, because you have to tell me what worked, what has not worked. Because as I've said, if it is that you want to be as aggressive as to what is happening in Venezuela, for example, then I know that Rowley was that aggressive as well. And it did not stop or did not cause an election to take place earlier than what was required under the Kamala Prasad Bisesa. I know that for a fact, and that is recorded. Facts are stubborn things that will have, anybody will have difficulty in, of course, adjusting, even though we still have some people who you may call revisionists, who would want, of course, to say something that really and truly never existed, but would want to make an intervention based on some kind of ad hominem statement that has no just a credibility in, of course, facts and reality. So, people, I thought it was important. Let's continue, because, of course, it's after. It's 7 minutes to the hour of 6 o'clock. Let's go
Millions of dollars to do technical submissions. It costs millions. It's not just the package for $3,000-4,000 you pay for. You pay enormous costs for the technical engineering people, design people, to do work, to bring in your bid. And all of that scrap now, because you didn't get through with China Harbor because the opposition raised the matter, the media raised the matter. No. It cannot stop here. HDC and the Ministry of Housing must account. And today I tell WPC Camille Robinson Regis, I want to tell the WPC that she must let go search warrant and now go and look for award at HDC to see what they were doing and how they arrived at that matter. Brothers and sisters, a related matter I will raise too. I finished with the Santa Rosa matter there. There's another matter involving HDC. Shagwana is right behind my back here where I'm speaking. Shagwanas, there is something called the Edinburgh Towers. Brothers and sisters, now this HDC is blight and corrupt. But they blight too, but they corrupt as well. This is the same HDC that had to cancel a project in 2019 with another Chinese company that they gave a contract to build 500 units, I believe, in Port of Spain, South Bay, and Lady Hills in San Fernando. You remember that? I forgot the name of the company. I'll get it in a little while. But the company was given a contract to build housing under Newman George. That is the man, HDC head at the time. It was a Chinese company by the name of China Gezhuba Group International Engineering. That was cancelled as well. So in 2019, you cancel a contract for 500 million. 2024, another contract for 472 million. And the Edinburgh Towers behind me. I have a picture, and I think we have some pictures on your screen to come up. This is a blight, a project that is a blight. It was started by one Keith Rowley as Minister of Housing. It started at a cost of 57 million. You know what it costs today? About $180 million. When we were there, we put a halt on this contract because the compound, the building, the facility at Edinburgh were in violation of health and safety laws. It was in violation of town and country planning laws. It was in violation of WASA and TNTEC regulations. The staircase was badly positioned. They had no elevator shaft and so on properly done. We stopped it. Do you know today there is a mad rush to complete those towers in Edinburgh, Shagwanas, I believe in the constituency of Shagwanas East, if I'm not mistaken, Carey Central. They are now in a mad rush to finish that, and they have been issuing $3 million contracts to friends and family of officials of the HDC. Friends and family are receiving $3 million contracts per floor. So when you add up the floors and the 3 million, you'll see what we're talking about. Friends and family without any procurement process. Today I asked the HDC, give us a list of the names of all contractors at that site in Edinburgh. Give us the list of the scope of works of all contractors. When did work begin? When is work expected to end? When is that facility housing estate expected to be completed? At what cost? But more importantly, what is the procurement process that was used to give out contracts like nuts at that building? And I put it to you, members of the press, that is another scandal that will now be unraveled in the coming days by the opposition as well, in addition to the other matters. So I leave that there for now, and I ask the HDC, and I ask the interesting Mr. Newman George, I believe he is now in charge of the construction company, or one of the companies under the HDC. I asked him to give us some answers on the Edinburgh Towers, and whether or not he's aware of the contractors who are there. That is a critical matter that we will leave there. There are two matters in the press today.
Let me just
briefly deal with before I close. And one matter, Matura wetlands under threat. It is in the news of today. This matter here.
Where is it?
There is a shocking revelation in the newspaper.
Right. President Knight.
Yes, once again, good night.
Good night.
Ms. Arima here.
Yes.
So this proxy that went to the Privy Council are talking about Mr. Balgobin Maraj. The activist. An activist is an activist. He had no MP in the UNC. He didn't go there for as to say he's an MP. He's an activist. It's he who had to put them before the Privy Council so we could have the local elections. I told you all long before elections, that local election, that he don't want no election inside of here. Let us try and get observers. And these people sit by and nothing.
No, but
Rowley,
wait,
I'm talking. When Rowley was asked,
go ahead,
by a reporter, he answered the man like a dog and tell him no. When they asked if they're bringing observers here.
I'm aware.
You think they're going to bring any observers for this general election and we must sit down inside of here and then protest and make action? And sit down like you know, sheep to be slaughtered?
But let me ask you a question.
That's what you feel going to happen?
Let me ask you a question.
Rowley ain't listening to them pussycat man we're talking there. They set up BS talking. Rowley
right,
and
let
had
me
time
ask
with
you a
them.
question.
Last night,
Let me ask you a question.
Mr. Dave Ridley say Rowley does buff them. He does buff everybody, even buffing them all in the parliament. These people are cowards.
All right.
You hear what I'm telling
let
you?
me ask you a question.
These people are called people for them. I ain't answer no question.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm gonna ask you it in your absence anyway. Do you really believe that Mr. Balgobin went there without the support or the behest or as a proxy for the, as you say, for the UNC? You know what's a proxy? A representative as well for the UNC. That's only how he could have gone there. Come on. Anand Ramlogan is the man who is the man that has been treating with all of these matters. So for all intents and purposes, it is the UNC. Let's not waste time now, man. We too much semantics. Things are as they are. It's the UNC that created that situation. Whether Rowley want to, we know that he never intended, and the UNC understood that. That is why they took the matter to the Privy Council. And I'm saying they because Mr. Balgobin couldn't go there on his own. Is that? Yes. Pleasant good night.
Okay, Lennox, it's me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Boy, that chat. Yeah, you were right about Ravi Balgobin. In fact, when there was a UNC meeting last year, I think it was early last year, Kamala Bissessa had him at her meeting, and she recognized him and his wife for acting, for filing those freedom of information.
I mean,
so he is a UNC party member, probably carries a party card.
It could be as technical as you want, it could be sophisticated, but that's the fact. Let's not waste time and say that there's somebody else. It's impossible for you to say that. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
But my comment is this now. You see, all these allegations of corruption and mismanagement, collusion, and doling out contracts without following procurement, the language of procurement. Doesn't all of this, when these things come, when these things are found out, or when these things do come to light, we have the Joint Select Committee. And one thing that I've noticed with the Joint Select Committee is they really have nothing to go on. They kind of just sit there and they'll ask questions, and once in a while it'll get a little rough, and and then they'll ask some more probing questions. But then everything at the end of the day, they'll say, we'll send a report, and they'll say, yes, it'll come to Parliament, and nothing happens. We never hear about it. One of the big things that really concerned me with the Joint Select Committee is that when they had those meetings and they had the Auditor General's office at those meetings, almost every ministry had problems with the Auditor General report. They never sent in budgets on time. They never sent in disclosure of the figures. They never sent support documentation to show who got the contract. And if they did, or sometimes they wouldn't reveal how much was spent. And the Auditor General would just, in her report or his report, they would just say, well, unsubstantiated or need more information. And it was just kind of just on the footnote, and then nothing would happen. And this has been going on for years. This didn't happen yesterday. So when constitutional reform came, and the PNM did have a meeting today, I did listen to it. The best part of the meeting was that they had two really good singers, and the performance was really good. Everything else was just propaganda, pretty much.
The slush fund is the slush fund is working. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, but when you have these this constitutional reform, they did talk about overhauling a lot of the system as it is now, but the PNM wouldn't do that because the system as it is now works to their advantage.
Go to the top of the class. Go to the top of the class, man. That is what I wanted to hear for the whole night. That is what. So it's an exercise in futility. It's an exercise in public relations. It's an exercise in propaganda. Go ahead.
Well, what they're going to show and put on paper is and release to the United Nations and all the other countries that we trade with and the watchdogs out there. They're going to say, look, we had these meetings and people wanted reform and we spoke about it and we did this and did that, and it's never going to pass because a lot of times when Trinidad goes before the United Nations or we have pending stuff that we need to ratify here and enforce, it never happens. It'll take decades for them to ratify any pending legislation or any new legislation that's coming in that to be drafted and filed and passed into law.
Yeah.
And if it does get passed into law, it never gets enforced. So I feel like this is like dressing up the window with this whole constitutional reform to fool the public because an election is coming up.
Camouflage,
I don't believe
camouflage and fronting.
It's a camoufage, yeah. And it's his tactic, but
So
it's going to catch up with him because he, this game that they play, it's an old game, and the tricks are the same, and it's boring. It's boring now, and
old
people,
dogs, and all of us are old dogs. You can't teach us new tricks.
You can't.
The whole population, including PNM psychopaths, know what is happening there. They know it.
But nobody's getting arrested. Nobody's getting arrested. Even Emil Elias had a rape charge against him, a child, and nothing's happening with that case. That could take 20 years to come to court. So, the girl might be dead by then.
Yeah.
So who knows? All right.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, that was just my comment.
Yeah,
all right.
thank you very much, of course. That is camouflagery and superficiality. That is what that is all about in preparation for election. They don't mean a bit. They're not going to take anything. You go tell me that he says that PR proportional representation is a dagger to the PNM, and that is a fundamental issue in that document, and he would stand up there and look at it and give the impression that, of course, is good work, and that the PNM will, of course, take a second, third, fourth, and fifth look, but only when and just before the elections. And I want to close by saying, because it's 6 minutes past 10 already, the greatest piece of camouflagery is one that I have some personal knowledge of, in that, I'm saying it, I think maybe for the third time on air like this, that the FBI met with me on Marval Road, not too far from the embassy, connected to certain information that I would have had, that a certain element in the United States wanted, and I did send a dossier of information coming out of the Delcy Rodriguez matter, among others, to the State Department. So 2 of them visited me, a tall and a short one, both I think of East Indian, in my view, a sort of East Indian American, talking full American twang, so to speak. But anyhow, we did talk, and we did, of course, extend the circumstances connected to Dr. Rowley himself with matters in the United States. And I want to tell you that Dr. Rowley is extremely dangerous and calculating. Extremely dangerous and calculating. But let me take this call before I tell you. See, it is nearing elections, and all holds bar, and we need to come out and say what the situation is, so that never again people like he must get his ultimate, what I consider to be punishment for what he has done to the people. But go ahead, caller. I'll finish with that after you. Go ahead, caller.
LENNOX, pleasant good night to you and everybody, any live near and far.
Yeah, good night.
LENNOX,
yes.
For the local election, right? What was the PNM slogan when they say vote for them? We was voting for
local government reform. Local government reform. Yeah.
Right. So where is the slogan now for the general election?
It appears to be constitutional reform.
Right.
They're on a reform carriage now. Yeah.
Right. But did they do anything for the local government election?
No, they have not. They have not. People are complaining all over the place. If it's not water, it's infrastructure. They ain't getting their release on time. They promised them, of course, there are two budgets. The media review did not produce the balance. So they have to move money from simple things like cemetery cleaning and so on, to make sure that they could pay staff and so on. And the litany goes on. Right? So I have another person on another line. So if you would speed up, go ahead. So if what?
So next year now they're talking about constitution reform.
Yeah,
so
they're gonna they love they love to operate in silos. The same people who have to pay property tax is the same people who have to pay income tax. Is the same people who have to pay the increase in gasoline taxes and so on. And but every time they impose it, they treat it in isolation so that they make a different argument for each one, and you at the end of the day feel it in your pocket and in your quality of life.
Yeah, but LENNOX,
Yeah.
LENNOX,
Yeah.
my simple thing is this, right? I had 9 years just to do that.
Yeah.
Why didn't just implement it now? Why didn't just put things in place and implement it now? So
listen
the
to
next year
Rowley.
coming on inside already.
Listen to Rowley and you will hear. Listen to him and you tell you why. All right, my friend. Let me go to the person in line laughing. I'm person. Good night. Let me hear you. Good night. Good night. Yes.
What I understand based upon what Arima is saying,
Yeah.
besides, we are aware of what the opposition is doing. But, as Colin Imbert had said, he raised the price of gas once, twice, nobody protests. And based upon that, we know what is happening in the country. I think people we need, as what Malcolm X has been saying in morning, and Kingsley, the brother saying that, we need to hit the streets.
Right.
And based upon that assumption, I believe it's not, we know the opposition is doing their part, but the people now need to do something.
Yeah, but I mean, let's face it. I mean, experience is the best teacher. We have been at the forefront of leading, whether we lead the trade unions, whether the trade unions do it on their own, whether there are other activist entities. What we have seen, our experience has been what? A poor response from, put another way, not just a poor response, but I should say a response that we believe could be far, far, far better. I don't want to say that there is no response, but far, far, far better. And therefore, so one could conclude it is not that these things are not happening. They are happening in concert or in addition to what the opposition is doing. But let's face it, we cannot do, nobody could do, no march could do what the opposition has done. Let's not waste time. They forced the government to call a local government election. Imagine the government went to parliament to cover themselves, and the opposition was still able to make them call an early local government elections. So I am certain that other things are going to happen that is happening outside of Trinidad and Tobago that will force Rowley to realize that his days are numbered, just as Maduro in Venezuela, and it's just a matter of time.
Okay,
Yeah.
because Colin Imbert was saying, they are protesting, they haven't protested, they haven't rioted.
No, that was just a platitudinous statement. It's like Nancy and the rabbit. The rabbit will say, "Don't throw me in the bush now, but it's the bush he want to go." But in this case, he really don't want them to protest, but showing how they're in charge of the place and the people respond accordingly. All right, yeah, no problem. Pleasant good night, welcome.
LENNOX,
Hey.
one for the road.
Go ahead.
One for the road.
Go ahead.
LENNOX, I've never heard more stupidity than what I just heard.
Go ahead.
Ravi Balgobin, as a private citizen, took the government to court
Right.
for his fundamental rights on the local government election.
Right.
A sitting MP could not have done it.
Right.
A sitting MP could not have done it. It had to take a private citizen to do it.
No,
So
but,
that when
but, but
there's a
yeah, but that's not the point. The point is that he would have acted for and on behalf. So that's why we use the term proxy, because the politician would have been accused of that, doing it because of politics.
LENNOX,
A private person.
I asked.
Yeah, a private person.
I asked, and it was explained to me in that way.
Yeah, it's okay.
It was explained to me in that way that a private citizen had to do it. A private citizen had to do it, right? Because I asked.
Yeah, but
Because I've been hearing right is Ravi did it, right is Ravi taking them to court or whatever, right? But you see, the thing about it is, You know, there's a saying when a man feels he knows, but he doesn't know he's a dumbass.
Yeah.
That's what
we heard tonight. We need to explain. We need to explain because there may be other opportunities. So therefore, we do not.
Yeah. You know what you must do?
Decry anybody.
You must ask one of the next time when you're talking to Dr. Monilal, you must ask him.
No.
Because I did ask a certain MP why did, and that is the explanation that I was given. It had to be done by a private citizen, right? And Ravi did it. Ravi took them to the thing, and that is how we were able. Right. And we still have to give kudos. This is what I want to say as well. We still have to give kudos to the UNC because according to Jayanti Lakshmi Diyal, right? Mrs. Basalbi says to give them a lot of information to file the case because you remember she was once a local government minister. She started off in the local government as a councillor. So she knew all the ins and outs of local government. So when they want to feel UNC not doing anything, think again. Think again. Thanks a lot, Lennox.
No problem. No problem. But again, my logic and common sense will tell me that a MP, whether it's an MP or a, let's say, let's put it a little closer. Let's say a member of NATEX, the executive of the UNC. As a member, that's the closest because I don't expect a sitting parliamentarian to do that simply because of the time one and that it could be couched in saying it is a political agenda and in itself could be a political football. It's not that that person cannot to do it. I have a difficulty with that because he who is a parliamentarian is also a voter and therefore he could claim that his constitutional rights has been infringed. So let's not waste time with that. So clearly you had to have somebody, and I like the term proxy, who would be acting on behalf in that capacity, have the time and everything, and will not be tainted as a politician would, an active politician, a MP, because I see nothing wrong if a member of NATEX, for example, an executive member of the UNC, decides, well, listen, my fundamental rights has been infringed, and I've decided to go to court. The court is there for everybody, including the MPs so no MP is prohibited from accessing the courts if a fundamental right has been infringed. The more practical thing to do, of course, in this case, is that you don't want to have it mired in political footballing, and that was a beautiful strategy and continues to be a beautiful strategy on the part of the UNC. All right, so I want to make that very, 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 very clear. I have no doubt in my mind that it will be almost ludicrous to think that MP cannot go to court in such circumstance if his fundamental rights as a MP, but as a citizen, has been infringed. No, I had to hear that from some source that I consider to be different. But that being as it may, I just thought it's important that we edify ourselves, and therefore, if I am wrong, well, of course, I will be the first to say so, and if, of course, others man enough to say that, well, then kudos. But I think categorically, an MP can take, if his rights is infringed as a citizen, can, of course, the court is there for them as well. I think, of course, that they will go if Rowley says something bad about them, or vice versa. If somebody says something bad about Rowley, I think he's going to court for as an MP. No, he's going to court as a citizen because he has access to the courts. All right. So that being as it may, in this democracy. Yes, let me just play this. I think this is an interesting one. So I think we have made the argument. I'll continue to play that tomorrow. I'll sort of edit it a little more so we get specifically and we don't have much of this cross talk within the video because it's already 18 minutes past 10 people. So let me just treat with that now, and So let me just get rid of,
A solution to demand that Venezuelan electoral authorities publish the minutes of each voting table, which would prove there was no fraud last Sunday, when the incumbent Nicolas Maduro had been lawfully chosen for the 2025 to 2031 term. The initiative, put forward by the United States, Argentina, Paraguay, Chile, and Uruguay, failed to reach the minimum of 18 endorsements, with a final tally of 17 votes in favor, none against, 11 abstentions, and 5
all right, that's not the one.
absences.
That's not the one I wanted. So we will close there. At least time has been well spent and fast spent. So we'll go straight, of course, to our closing. Should I say anthem, which is, of course, a Baptist medley. Yes, people, of course, we have come to the end of tonight's exercise. Don't forget tomorrow morning, the ground report, Andy, Mikey, and myself, as we continue, of course, with these and other issues. It was wonderful doing it. Of course, have a wonderful one. I'm going to take a good rest. I have to get back up pretty early to, of course, do some research for the ground report in the morning. Have a wonderful one. God bless. Bye-bye.